Welcome back to the show, everyone. I
Hey,
couldn't take
everybody.
it. Hey, Dina, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get an
A
intro
better,
microphone. Couldn't
yeah,
do it.
yeah, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I even noticed
Marvels,
how
our
tinny the
Marvel
other one was.
friends.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, friends. I'm sorry for that. Just doing the best. The girl's just
For
doing the
those that
best she
don't
can
know,
over here.
Gwen's lost some things in the California fires, and were you using just the microphone on your
I
iPods?
was using my AirPods.
Oh, yeah, it's
So
bad
that's
sound.
all I
Yeah,
had.
yeah,
That's all I had. I had my AirPods and a very open room with nothing in it. Clearly,
yeah.
this is. And
So
I was like, I
hopefully it
can't do
sounds
it.
better. Yeah,
After
yeah,
editing multiple videos, I was like, I am so sorry, friends. Like,
yeah,
I can't do this. So I
yeah.
apologize.
You're
Might
very
be why
sound
our
sensitive.
subscribership has gone down. So my
Yeah.
my audio quality.
That's it. That's got to be the reason. Yeah,
That's it. That's it. Scott. It can't
yeah,
be our
yeah.
dazzling personalities.
Or
Um,
it's some sort of attentional blindness and they're paying attention to something else. How's that for a good
leave it to
segue?
Dana. Dana can.
Yeah.
You know what, Dana? This actually is related to our loose associations. Like we were
Hmm.
jokingly and lovingly saying like we should call our show loose associations.
Yeah.
But the ability to have all those associations,
Yep.
right, really
Yeah.
leads
Yeah.
to really being really able to form good segues,
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. Making connections.
making
So
connections. I love that.
this idea of well, perceptual blindness is another word
Hmm.
that we've seen. Have seen it showing up. How many
Wow.
different tenses can I mix in one sentence? I was never good at that.
I I
The
think
teacher
that's
would
a
be like,
sign of
"What are you doing?"
intelligence. It's a
Yeah,
sign of
future,
intelligence.
past tense, present tense. How the I've seen it. I'm seeing. Oh my god, I'm seeing it show up in the ADHD crowd on social media. So it caught my eye a couple days ago. The that perceptual bias or missing something perceptually. There's some seminal works in our field. One is, and I remember it's still undergrad, them showing us this video where they are instructing you as the watcher, and they have a bunch of people in a circle passing a basketball around. Some have red shirts on, some have blue shirts on, and you're supposed to watch and make sure that the blue shirts are that they're going blue shirt, red shirt, blue shirt, red shirt, that they're not repeating the color, right? So you're really fixed on watching where the ball is going and making sure they're basically telling you where to put your attention. What you don't notice then during that 15-second clip or however long it is, if there's a dude in a gorilla suit that comes into the view and kind of runs past and leaves the frame again. And so after you're done, they say, "Did you see the gorilla?" And you're like, "What are you talking about?" And then they show it again, and now you're looking for the gorilla. And it's so obvious that it's kind of disturbing that you didn't see the gorilla, right? So this was some really interesting research that was done probably late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere in there. Stanford then did another building on that about why does this happen? I mean, that experiment was really seminal because it was showing, it was priming the viewer to pay attention to something specifically and seeing if they'd missed something. So they wondered if it was more general than that. So they devised an experiment again at a college, because you have all these kind of captive students. They're great research subjects. They're like human rats that you can say, you have to do this for your class.
I told Dana, I said to Dana that undergrad students are like the
Yeah,
psychologist mice.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they have a recruitment out saying we're doing this. Take 5 minutes of your time. You'll get extra credit for class, whatever. Go to this place on campus. So these people will come in, and there's a big sign above the desk that says, if you're volunteering for this research study, sign in here. So you see the people, it's shot from behind the desk. So you see the guy talking to someone coming in, and then you see the face of the person who's come in. And they say, I'm here for blah, blah, blah. And the guy says, okay, great. He says, let me just get the forms you need to sign. So he goes below the desk where there you can't see him anymore. The person coming in can't see him anymore. We see him. And a different person stands up. So now, mind you, it's not a massive change. It's not like it was a man and then it's a woman, and it's not like someone was wearing, starkly different clothing. But I think one was wearing a tie and the other one wasn't, or something like that. It was something like 88% of people do not notice that it's a different person. So he gives them the forms. It's really funny because you can see people that do notice, they're kind of like, they're not saying anything, but they're kind of like, what's going on here? So they give them the forms to fill out. They go in the other room, and unbeknownst to them, at that point in time, they didn't know that really was the experiment. So then they go into the other room to get debriefed, and they are asked, did you notice anything unusual when you were signing in? And most people say no. A few people said, yeah, there was a different guy that stood up, but most people don't see it. And then when they tell them it was a different person that stood up, and they even show them the video, they're really sort of like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't notice this. That really began the literature and the research about what we actually pay attention into our environment and what we fill in from memory. We cannot possibly, like, I'm sitting in this room right now, if I was paying attention to every little detail that was in the room all at once, I wouldn't have enough bandwidth to be speaking, right? So our brains figure it out, a way to fill in what's familiar. And then unless I'm paying attention to that exact thing, it's not in my visual field, so it's not in my attentional field, and I don't see it. So it's sort of like it's attentional blindness is that phrase I'm seeing show up. It's totally normal. And if you think that you never do this, think about if you go somewhere new. I'm thinking like you walk into psychologists, right? We notice things out in our environment. Noticing, like, when you see tourists downtown, I can tell downtown a tourist from a million miles away. Like if I go to Pike Place Market, because they're stopping and they're looking around, because it's like everything's everywhere. If you're used to that environment, you're like, I need to go get this thing. You just walk through it. But someone who it's new to, there's so much stimulation that you can't fill in from memory because it's so new. This is like the proverbial little kid that you hand something they've never had before, and now they can't walk because they're just like, whoa, and they're tripping out on that new thing, right? As we age and as we fill our world in from memory, we don't run into that issue as much unless it's novel stimulus. Now, how does it show up in the ADHD crowd right now? And I read the perfect example, and it was, for example, you go into the pantry to get something and you can't find it. And then the other person comes and says, it's right here. Like it's like 3 feet, it's like 3 inches this way, but they couldn't see it because they're looking at this one sort of middle that they're paying attention to, and they can't see stuff around it, which is essentially that same thing. And then the family member or whoever is like, how did you not see that? Right? It really is a thing that we're seeing show up. It's an attention thing. So doesn't it kind of make sense that it would show up in an attention issue like ADHD, or if you happen to not be paying attention to a specific thing at any point in time? So you're blind to what's actually obviously there, like the gorilla, but it's normal for something like ADHD, right?
Yeah.
To me, it also, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, because I'm not ADHD. I'm continually looking for uh, ways to understand that lived experience better. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. So it must be so frustrating that if you're not paying attention to just that thing that's nuancedly different than what you're looking at, you miss it, right? And then I started to think about learning. And it's so much about making sure you get all those discrete things from the environment so you're learning. And if you happen to not be paying attention to that one thing, attentional things can hit autistics too. I can remember being in school and thinking like there was some secret that people weren't telling me. I wasn't in on the secret of learning, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you're just not paying attention to that one thing at that given point in time, you're going to miss it, right? I also thought about, I think I've mentioned on here before, my wife does instructional design for UW. And so a lot of it is, how do you design literally like a web page, a learning page, to make sure that it's accessible, but also to anybody? Is it so cluttered that no one can find anything? She'll continually have to remind me when I get frustrated on a website and I can't find something, and I'm looking and I'm looking, and she'll say, scroll to the bottom. Is it down at the bottom? And sometimes it is, but if it's not on that one screen, I don't think to look elsewhere, kind of like in the pantry. And
Yeah.
so I can overhear a conversation she's having with professors on designing their sites, and she'll say things like, try not to have too many pages people have to get through, and try not to have a lot of scrolling. And if it's a really imperative, like submit button, it has to be really, like we mentioned on that last episode, right there, right in front of you. But there's always going to be things normally that are outside your peer view that you're not going to pick up on. But I think it's a really huge issue for ADHD, and maybe it hasn't been defined that way because I'm seeing it show up on social media as like the lived experience. People are saying it's a revelation for them to learn about this. So I'm like, oh, okay, this would be a great topic for us to talk about. How do you then recognize that and try to pay attention to different things? That's the hard part, right?
I mean, I think like that is the difficult piece because what we're talking about is conscious
Mm-hmm.
awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And that a lot of times if you're in your mind, like
Mm-hmm.
even if you're like, oh, I'm thinking about something else. I'm
Yeah.
I'm kind
Yeah.
of I'm here, but I'm not like really here and I'm thinking about something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order for your brain to have to process it in a way where you need to make a decision on it,
Mm-hmm.
you do need focus and concentration
Right. Yeah.
on the stimulus. Like that is the
Mm-hmm.
big piece. And so, a lot of times when someone that says to me, Gwen, I think I've got a memory problem. My memory,
Mm-hmm.
like I've got a memory issue. And I
Mm-hmm.
say to them, memory issues are actually quite rare. Like it's
Yeah.
not something that we really see. I mean, clearly like as people
Dementia.
age, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
see that, but even age-related decline of
Mm-hmm.
memory, which is expected, isn't so big. Like, right?
Mm-mm.
Um and so I say to them, well, the first thing we need to ask is like, do you feel you actually attended to
Mm-hmm.
the stimulus to be able to do something with it,
Right.
potentially in working memory, right? If we
Yeah.
look at like
Yeah.
memory and processing, and we say, okay, so there's like this very quick memory, like, short term,
Mhm,
whatever. There's even
mhm,
something
mhm.
faster than that, really. You know, we've now focused on it, concentrated on it. Oh, we put it in
Yeah.
working memory, we do something with it, we juggle it, and then it
Mhm.
gets stored,
Yeah.
right? If we
Yeah.
like actually do something with that information,
If you don't have the attention focused on it, though, and that doesn't go through
right?
any of those
Not
processes. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's not a memory issue.
Right. It's an attention issue.
It's an attention
Yeah.
issue, right?
Yeah.
And so I can see why, and I think inattentive ADHD in particular,
Mm, mm,
you're
mhm.
distracted by internal things, not usually
Yeah.
external. Like there are things,
Right.
I always call it like the hidden ADHD because on the
Mm.
surface, inattentive, like inattentive ADHDers, they look like they're paying attention. They're there.
Yeah.
They're not jumping out of their seats. They're
Right.
not
Right.
speaking out of turn usually, right?
Yeah.
But they are not there.
Yeah.
Like their
Yeah.
minds are not are not there,
Now,
which I know is
right.
different.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
different than what we're talking about, but I can see how it's all kind of related
Yeah,
to
no, I was going
this.
to say what you mentioned is actually really important because the inattention, paying attention to something else can be internal, but it can be just about anything
Mhm.
internal. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
I'm having this whole daydream about this other thing. It might be that I always get frustrated trying to learn how to write an essay. And so
Mhm.
as soon as I know I have to write an essay, I'm distracted by my own frustration,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Versus if someone says to me, here are the 3 steps to write this paragraph. And now all of a sudden, oh, if I can do that and I have these 3 steps to write this paragraph, now you're giving me instructions and I'm going to follow those 3. And lo and behold, I wrote a paragraph.
Yeah.
Now maybe I don't get frustrated every time. And now I've gotten in the cracks, if you will, of learning for that person. So it's so important for us to hear what's going on, like from that kid or that adult. What do you think right then when you couldn't pay attention to this other thing? What were you thinking? And how often times does that happen? It's more like, pay attention. Come on, stop daydreaming. It's not like, what were you thinking right then? What
Yeah.
were you experiencing right then? Well, the teacher said we have to write an essay and I immediately got anxious and now I'm thinking about, oh crap, is this going to have to be something we read in class and people are going to laugh at me, or I don't know how to approach this. I don't know how to disarticulate it. I'm terrible at this. All those kinds of things can be forms of distraction, right? And
Yeah.
blocks, right?
Yeah.
So that it becomes really complex really quickly, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like that, as usual, you and I are splitting hairs. And it's so funny
Mm-hmm.
because I heard someone on a different podcast. They were talking about nuances and they're like, we know nuances aren't like sexy out there.
Oh,
People want the big, like the
right.
big bam,
Yep.
kind of provocative statement, right? And I
Right.
was like,
Right. Right.
wow, then Dana and I are really anti-sexy, is all I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
Because we like to swim in the nuances
Mm-hmm.
because the nuances actually are what's important, I
Yeah.
think, in our work.
Yep.
And that the person's lived experiences are really what we need to be paying attention to,
Right. Right.
more than
Yeah.
anything else. I love this kind of conversation about distractibility
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because
That.
right, which is
Right.
different. It's different than this kind of this inattentive blindness is like I'm
Right.
paying attention to something so much that the things outside of that scope or
Yeah.
field
Like
are
flow
ignored.
when you're really focused on something in
Right.
ADHD would be a
Right.
version of that. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm so stuck and that could be something in your mind. That
Right.
could be you being kind of engulfed by your emotional dysregulation. There,
Right.
there could be that and I can't see anything else.
Right.
Um I think oftentimes what this reminds me of or where I see this a lot in my practice is when this is more about cognitive decision making than about
Mm.
my attention to the environment. But it's like I'm so caught up on on doing this one thing that I forgot to step back and go, wait a minute, I've got choices. you know,
I'm disempowering myself. I get it.
wait,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
like it. I was working with a client on wanting to go to this family member's birthday party, but really despising going to birthday parties. I mean,
Oh yeah.
like it's just painful,
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah.
And then we were talking and talking, we were exploring as we usually do. And then I finally said to him, "You know you can leave early, right?" He was
Yeah.
like, "What?" I said,
Uh,
"You can leave the party early. There's nothing to say that you have to stay. Like, when do you
mm-hmm.
think you have to stay?" And he's like, "Gosh, I mean, I always feel like I have to stay until like people either start to leave or the last person's left." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"No,
Mm-hmm. You
you
could be
can
the
be
first
the
person to
first
leave.
person."
Right. Yeah.
He was like, "Oh my God, I didn't
Oh.
even
Yeah.
consider that." And then of course because this is a beautifully brilliant autistic mind said,
Mm.
"But then what are the social ramifications of leaving
Yeah.
early?"
Right.
And
Right.
here we
Right.
go
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
another route.
Yeah.
But he didn't even consider that,
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
right?
It can keep you
Like
hidden from something else. Yeah. Yeah.
another client was like walking to his car from the office, blocks and blocks away because he'd parked farther away in order to like get more walking. So it was
Yeah.
brilliant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's 50 feet from his car and he realizes he still has the restroom key in his pocket.
Oh.
And he turns around and is like, right? And walks blocks and blocks back
Oh, all the way back. Yeah.
to put the key back. And then he realized I could have just hopped in my car and driven it back.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
not even think about it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that was a thing. And I don't
Yeah.
know if that necessarily falls under inattentional blindness or
Mhm.
perceptual
Mhm.
blindness.
Mhm.
It's funny because when you use
It's
the
a
word
form of internal perceptual blindness though, right? It doesn't occur
yes,
to you those other, yeah,
right.
interesting.
It's
Yeah.
interesting because I think when you leave the term perceptual blindness, that does
Mhm.
mean you're perceiving let's say your external
Right,
environment.
right,
It's
right.
almost better. But when it's called inattentional blindness,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
man, I think that gets like really
Yeah, yeah,
like it gets
yeah.
really
Well, I'm thinking about like
complex.
how autistics get accused of being rigid or you have to do everything the same way. And that, well, I'm supposed to return the bathroom key. You're not supposed to leave without it. And so it didn't occur to him to not do it that way, but to drive back, right? And just like you said, those are leaving the party early. Those are potential options that you have that don't occur to you at all,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have, we have, because of this, still have stuff in our spare room that I need to put up in the attic from Christmas. And my wife has been so great with some teaching me lots of things, because I mentioned it again on Sunday and I'm like, oh my god, I forgot to put the stuff, because I we have to do it together. I forgot to do stuff in the attic. I want to do it before I take a shower because it's dirty up there. And she just says, well, it's not going anywhere. It'll be there next week for us to do it. And I'm like, yeah. I could get all worked up about, oh crap, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, go down that rabbit hole of why didn't I do it,
Yeah.
I'm lesser person because I didn't do it. And it's like, yeah, they're inanimate objects. They're not going to be moving between now and next weekend. It's
Right.
fine. Right.
Yeah.
So that sense of getting that calming from the environment, and that focus on something else, almost sometimes like you're a guy that had to go take the bathroom key back, to someone else in the moment saying, oh, it's fine. Let's just drive back. When you said that, it's so funny because what just popped into my mind. I'm like, if I get in the car with this bathroom key, it's proof further, like someone's watching, that I'm trying to steal the bathroom key. I'm really not. I'm going to go back. But for that moment, someone's going to think you're going really far with that key, and maybe I should just walk. So you're right. There's all this stuff internally that are pushes and pulls that you're having to fight against, that make you completely blind to other options. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think if we were to look at the letter of the definition, right? If we were to get,
Mhm.
probably the cognitive aspects, the emotional
Yeah,
aspects may
yeah,
not
yeah.
be what the researchers,
No, it may
had
not be,
in
and yeah,
mind, but
maybe that right, but maybe that's why we're seeing the phrase show up as inattention blindness
yes,
rather than perceptual
yes,
blindness. That
yes,
that someone out there, probably the ADHD crowd, has modified the word to make it fit better, and it totally
yes.
makes sense to me. Yeah.
That resonates in many, many ways,
Mhm.
just based on the experiences of my clients and
Mhm. Mhm.
trying to pay attention to those things as well. Um,
A lot of people have seen Inside Out. That the first one where I haven't seen the second one yet, but the first one where they have the memory that look like big bowling balls that are all stacked up. I imagine walking into the pantry, it's like that, and those are all attentional pieces. And if I'm only looking at that one ball, I'm not going to see one two balls over. If
yeah.
I've got all this other stuff distracting me internally, do you know what I mean?
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, having a visual of that, and then if you can't find something, maybe saying to yourself, okay, I need a system to deal with this. I used to do that at the grocery store, where I'd want to find something and I'd look for it really fast, and then I wouldn't see it. And then part of me would get kind of excited because I'm like, if I take my time and use a system to find it, I bet they'll have it. And then I won't be disappointed. But it had to be a system. I have to start at the top and literally go through every. So in a way, I'm saying, I know I may have inattention blindness. I'm going to go up and down each row and see if I find it.
You've
But that's something that I
compensated.
had to figure out, right? That's sort of
Yeah.
it's an MO that I have now to do that. And now I just order
Yeah.
groceries, so I don't have to have
Yeah.
to deal with
You
that
don't have
at
to deal with
all.
that. It's interesting because I've got multiple clients who are brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and when I mean brilliant, it's like I can make the fastest connections between things. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
just like their brains are just awe inspiring to me.
Mm-hmm.
They try to go work at a store,
Oh
entry
God.
level
Yeah.
position, and they try to shelve things. This is what reminds me of that. And Dana,
Oh
they
yeah.
can't find where this one item goes. They can't
Yeah.
find the match. And I
Oh.
swear it's because they're like, they think it's here, right? They
Yeah.
think it's
There's
here,
so much going on in there. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they don't see it two shelves up.
Right. Exactly.
And he said to me, it's completely, what's the word? Like it just like annihilating to the ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, you say
Yeah.
I'm smart, but I can't even put this thing on the shelf. I can't
Oh,
even find where
totally.
this goes.
Right.
This
Right.
type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But this, I mean, that's also like this kind of idea of attention. Like,
Yeah.
how do
Yeah.
I pay attention? And I think in regards to attention, we don't talk about all the process of attention.
Yeah.
It's like parts of attention which are difficult: initiating attention, sustaining
Mhm.
attention, shifting attention, ending, terminating
Yep.
attention.
Yep.
We don't
Yep.
talk about how actually complex attention is,
That's right.
and that people can have a difficult time at some of those parts, one of those parts, and it's an intentional problem.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you are friends, our Marvel friends, if you have an example that you'd like to
Yeah.
share of inattentional blindness or something along the lines that we're talking about here,
Yeah.
um, share it.
Yeah. I'd love
I
to
mean,
hear it.
Dana and I love,
Yeah.
we love to hear all these things. But anyway,
Yeah.
all right, all y'all, be good to you and be good to others. We will catch you in the next episode.
Bye, everybody.